Welcome to the You're Not Crazy podcast, hosted by Jessica Knight, a certified life coach who specializes in healing from narcissistic and emotional abuse. This podcast is intended to help you identify manipulative and abusive behavior, set boundaries with yourself and others, and heal the relationship with yourself so you can learn to love in a healthy way. You can connect with Jessica and find additional resources, content, and coaching at emotionalabusecoach.com.
Hello, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Going to run through the fine print quickly before we dive in. If you're looking for coaching, whether it's a one-off call or consistent coaching, which I do, I offer an intro call, which is a call that talks about what you're going through, how I might be able to help. And that's all part of ongoing coaching. And if you're looking for something more one-off, I have a validation call, which is pretty much a deep dive on exactly what you're going through. I ask questions before so I can be on the same page with you. And then what we do is we dive in and I really try and make as much progress as we can throughout that call. If there's resources that come up that might be helpful, books, podcasts, or even just exercises and how to work through it, but also like tons of like framing, validation, and understanding around what you're going through and maybe like clearing out some of the noise. That's definitely what happens, on a validation call. I always say this, it's on the website, but it's obviously hard to see it sometimes. But if you can't find a time that works for you, you always can just email me, Jessica Knight Coaching. I don't post every time that I'm available on there because I have many one-on-one clients. And so I keep the space open for my reoccurring clients. They are in the schedule, but of course, people have to reschedule and move things. And so the timing that I typically have, I just don't offer everything online because then I wouldn't have space for them. And that is the bulk of my work. You can also find me on Substack if you search Jessica Knight Coaching, or you can use the link in the show notes. And I have courses available on my website, the Emotional Abuse Breakthrough Course, How to Break Up with a Narcissist, which is an ebook, as well as a series of high conflict divorce resources that are also available on my website. If you go to emotionalabusecoach.com, you can just click on high conflict divorce coaching, or you can use all the links that are in the show notes. And so I want to dive into the topic today. And essentially, this is a part of trauma bonding. And the reason that this topic is coming up and I'm framing it this way is because I had 3 calls today, the day that I'm recording this, that all were very centered around this idea that when we're trauma bonded, we're addicted. And like they just wanted, in various ways, the clients that I was working with, they wanted the relief. And this is a feeling I know so well. This is why we just want that text message. We want to see that they like something on social media. We want to see that they watched our story. We want the relief. And that's because when we're in the cycle of abuse, we're so stuck on that pattern of like getting to the calm, getting to the reconciliation. If you've been here, if you've listened to my other episodes, you've heard me talk about that sometimes people are just so addicted to like the reconciling because that's the only time the relationship feels good. It's the only time it feels positive. And so the only time that you can actually breathe, right? And so when we're trauma bonded, we're not thinking about things logically, but we think that we are, right? Because if we are thinking logically and if we write all the things down and we're like, this is why I shouldn't want this person, but I do want this person, we just drive ourselves absolutely crazy. So I want to touch on the reason that you can know someone is toxic, but still want them. And it's a reason why even though you've been hurt, humiliated, shattered, your body is going to long for their presence. This is part of the trauma bond. It's not weakness. It's not that you're failing. It's like your nervous system is actually doing exactly what it's trained to do. And the reason that I'm sharing this is because I hope that it could take away some of the shame of my logical brain is saying this and my logical friend is saying that. And like, I'm afraid to tell people what I think because what I really should be doing is walking away, but I can't. And so I want to break down what trauma bonding actually feels like, not just the definitions, not just the checklists, but the lived reality of being stuck in that loop when your mind can't think its way out of it. And so I actually want to start with your brain and what's going on there, because I think this is something that it took a long time for me to understand. But once I did, And I actually haven't talked about this, and I wish that I have, because like as I was working with these clients today, I was like, oh my God, like this was something that was like one of those truth bombs that just landed for me, that I was like, oh shit, like that's actually what's going on. I still felt shame because I'm a human being, but I don't have to feel that much shame about what I'm experiencing, because my brain is literally doing what it's designed to do. And so our rational thought fails when we're trauma bonded. And that's because we're operating from a dysregulated nervous system. Under stress, the prefrontal cortex, where our rational thoughts, our logic brain, it goes offline. The amygdala, that's where the fear, the craving, the panic comes from, that takes over, right? So it's like that fight or flight response. That's what's happening at that time. You can't logic your way through a trauma response, because what you're taught is that you have to like anchor down through it. And so we start leaning into these emotional urges rather than the cognitive beliefs, the logical mind, right? So if you think about it, it's like emotional urges are greater than cognitive beliefs when we're in our trauma bond. You can know that the person is toxic and still want them. And it's not rational, but that's the result of a brain being trying to associate that person, that feeling, with the end of pain, even when they're the cause. And the shame that's here just reinforces the cycle. When you fail to say, stay rational to yourself, you feel shame. And that shame makes you want relief. And your brain still thinks that that person is the relief. And then the cycle continues. It's like, it's maddening when we're going through it, because all we want to do is feel relief. And we're associating the person that's giving us, that person that is causing pain as also the person that gives relief. And so it's like, it's very similar to in the cycle of abuse when you have reconciliation and you're just like, oh, I can breathe now. Now that we've reconciled, we're in calm. You're actually addicted to that craving. And that's not what love is. That's not the truth. That's not the truth of everything in the relationship. You want to feel that relief, and it's not coming when you're trauma bonded and you're trying to break away, when you're trying to break up. You're like, if you're leaning into no contact, it's going to get really hard. And you're almost like holding on for the longer term relief at this point. But that feels even harder, because if you're holding on to try and get to the relief where you're no longer feeling like you're stuck in this addictive cycle, it is going to be very painful, in the same way that if you were breaking any other addiction, it's not going to be easy just because your rational brain says, I shouldn't have that anymore. Your body is addicted to it. It's basically the core agony of trauma bonds. The body says, reach out. Your heart says, one more time. And the brain, the part that's kind of clawing for this clarity, knows that even if you get that like hit, it's going to come coated in shame and chaos and re-traumatization. I think the way that I phrased this earlier, which is like not a coherent sentence, but I think it makes sense to those listening, is like, you want to feel the relief and it's not coming right now, but the relief would probably come after going through a lot of pain, after really not biting the hook. And I'm going to talk before the end about basically what that looks like, and maybe some strategies on how to not bite the hook. And so it's just that you kind of get stuck in this illusion of relief. It's a cycle of tension followed by release. In abusive relationships, there's this pattern: emotional chaos, emotional withdrawal or silence, and then sudden reconciliation. And when you're in the relationship, that's what it looked like all the time. But then you start craving the break and the pain, especially when you're not getting back together. You don't hear back from them, that like maybe it's finally over. Maybe they're playing games and really stonewalling you, and like you to think like you messed everything up. You don't miss the person. You miss the temporary break and suffering. But every time you go back, the relief comes chained to more suffering. So you don't long for the connection. It's more like there's desperate for the absence of the pain right now. But the only way to really get there is to end the cycle, not to extend it. I hate using this analogy, but I think it's the most factual. And I hate it because I hate equating it to alcohol or a drink or something, just because like I don't want to I don't know. I guess I don't want to offend anybody that is going through it in any way. But I think it actually is a really good visual. And as somebody that has I haven't suffered with alcoholism, but I've had many people in my life who have suffered with alcoholism, and also the consequences of like basically those who are, that are alcoholics and don't take care of it. So I just feel like very, I don't know, sensitive even to the example. So I just gave a very long explanation of like why I don't want to give this example before I give it, which is like kind of, yeah, on brand, I guess. But I think you get what I'm saying. And so like just with like addiction, right? Like the body says drink, the brain says don't, the craving says just one will help. But then what happens next? Guilt, shame, detox, and then it happens again. And that's where you end up, right? Like you're sober from the abuse. The body screams just one more hit. But what you're doing, holding out, is building that like emotional sobriety. It's painful, but it's necessary. And so one of the reframes that I found myself offering today was that the craving is not proof that you're meant to go back. The pain is not a mistake. You're healing. That's why it's here. But the relief that costs you your dignity is not relief. That's more of a relapse. And so the part of you that's holding out for the longer term peace, that's the version that you're really fighting for. Because that's the person that heals and the one that can learn what actual love feels like. That's not punishing, not chaotic, not addictive, but it finally actually feels like love. And so I want to share a few things that I think would be helpful. And I actually, before I go there, there's something else that like, as soon as I said, I'm going to do this, it kind of popped in my brain. But like, I wanted to talk a little bit about triggers for a moment. So the nervous system is just not like a walking like willpower machine. You can't decide not to be triggered. That's not like a mindset that you can get yourself in all the time because it's a biological reaction that's shaped by trauma and pattern recognitions and conditioning. And so when the abuser does something, right? Maybe they view you on social media or like a photo or text, reply to a group chat or something like that. Your body is like seeing it as danger and then like adapting to it, right? So one of the things that has come up this week is really looking at social media usage and if it's affecting you. Because like, let's just say it, we have all posted stories to Instagram and then checked to see if the person liked it. And like one of the pieces of advice I gave to one of the three was I said, look, I know that this is going to be hard. And I know that this is a piece of the puzzle that has always been hard. But if I said one thing that was going to help you like kind of make it through this week in a better way, I'd hide your story from that person because it's going to cut off you checking to see if they looked at it and how soon they looked at it, how quick they looked at it. And I don't know, we didn't end the session if they were going to do it or not. Like, I'm not that kind of person. I just said, like, I just like looking at all the patterns and your patterns and where things have been. I think the largest impact would be if you did that because that's pulling you in over and over again. And it's almost like removing that feeling of like, I'm going to try not to be triggered because that actually creates more shame, which creates more internal tension, which creates hypervigilance. It just leads to more emotional reactivity. And so the solution is not to just suppress it all. It's to actually acknowledge it and then detach and then make a choice. And so I think it's just a piece of the puzzle just to be mindful of like, what can you do that is still triggering you that you're trying not to be triggered by when you actually could just take away the trigger for a while. And it might be painful and it will be painful, but it's better than what you're going through. And so one of the strategies that you can do is begin to reframe some of the thoughts. And I think one of the most critical reframes is that so many people believe the lie that if I still want them, it means they weren't that bad. That's not true. Wanting them doesn't disprove the abuse. It proves how deep the conditioning went. That's the dopamine looped brain logic of trauma bonds. The abuser causes the harm. They withhold affection. They offer a tiny gesture of warmth in some way. The body floods with relief. And now that person feels like the cure. But they were never the cure. It's like literally like the illness marketing itself as the medicine. And we shame ourselves into it, right? Because we shame ourselves into the cycle. So offering yourself those reframes so that you're not blaming yourself for your feelings. Like, if I was stronger, I wouldn't feel like this. That leads you to feel ashamed. And so a reframe or something like that could be more so that my brain is doing what it's supposed to do right now, but this person is not going to give relief. My brain is doing what it's trained to do, but it's not actually going to give relief. It's not true relief. It still actually puts me right back in the cycle. Another thing that you can do or to begin to think about is naming the storm that's going on out loud. And so this is one that I used to do. I would say, my brain is craving relief, not love, not truth, just literal relief. That helped me personally separate from the emotion of it all because it reactivated the observer part of my brain that is like, wait, yeah, relief. I want the relief. And I'm attaching the relief to that person, but maybe for a moment I can believe that that's not true. I don't recommend this all the time, but I'm going to say it now. I do think it's important. Write the unchanging truth. So write down 10 hard truths about the person. The reason I don't recommend this all the time is because I think it keeps us stuck in the cycle of pain and because it puts so much energy onto them and it could really hurt sometimes. So then we start wondering why. But if you feel like this would help, if you feel like you're in a place where this would help, then I think that this does help. Write down 10 hard truths. He punished me for my feelings. She made me think I was crazy. He never had a conversation about repair. She literally thought her feelings were facts. Whatever it is, write them down and then keep that list with you. Read it out loud when you need to, because it's going to start to interrupt the cycle. Sometimes we need something to interrupt the pattern that's more of a physical thing. And so you can splash cold water on your face, get up, move your body. I used to have a client who's actually in a wonderful relationship now. But when she was going through breaking the trauma bond, we used to have this thing because this was during COVID. And so she worked from home as the rest of the world did. And so it would be when she started feeling the addictive feeling, she needed to go outside. She had a job where she wasn't on Zooms, 25 hours out of the day, but it was okay. But that helped interrupt it, right? Because instead of sitting in it, it helped. And then sometimes you can just say I choose not to believe this, but say it out loud because I know it's going to feel silly, but just saying I'm not believing this. I'm not believing this. I'm not believing this part of my brain. It is creating a new narrative for your nervous system. And I'm going to be honest, if you've listened to anything I've ever said about no contact, I am not the spokesperson of no contact. I have struggled with it a lot, but no access. This is the long game. If you still have access to their socials, photos, text, you're not just choosing the pain spiral, but you're feeding it. You can't build on the rationality that you're trying to get to while feeding this fantasy. So the best that you can, even if it's just one thing a day, or even if it's hiding, right? You can still have them on your phone, but hide your story, mute theirs, do the things that you need to do so that you don't see their account. And above all, stop judging yourself for feeling, because rationality doesn't mean the feelings stop. Rationality means that you stop leaning into the feelings. You're not weak. This all doesn't mean that you're broken at all. It's withdrawal from someone who trained you to think that whatever that they were doing was actually love. And I think that if you're feeling this and you're listening to this and you're oh my God, it's that relief, right? The craving that you want isn't the connection with the person, it's the relief. That's what you're waiting for. It's the end of the pain. And it's not in the craving, it's in actually going through the withdrawal. And I will be honest, I went through every single version of this that I possibly ever could go through when I was healing from this. It took so long, especially the first time I was trauma bonded. And I was oh my God, there was not enough validation I could get in a day. But every so often I'd hear something that took me a little bit more, right? So when I really started to lean into not being activated by their socials, or how I saw that all his feelings were facts, or how he saw it, or how he internalized everything as himself, or when I made the lists and I was oh my God, there's actually a lot more than 10 things I can put down on this list. And then it's like another reframe I would do is think about like, how would a healthy partner handle this? How would a mature partner handle this? Well, they wouldn't do that. And it really helped me, but it doesn't mean that I wasn't crying and falling apart on the days in between or even every day. It just means that there were little things that helped me because one, not everybody in the whole world knows what a trauma bond is, but like it is absolutely real and it's absolutely so painful. It's so painful. And I truthfully don't know that I would actually truly and completely understand it if I didn't go through it. Because if you don't go through it, it's so hard to explain it. People out in the outside world just think you're not being logical when you're like, no, I'm literally and physically doing the best I can. I really hope that this was helpful. I hope that there's a nugget in here that you can take and that will help carry you along. If you need any support, all of the links that I have that I mentioned at the beginning of the call are in my show notes. So you can just scroll down. Everything is there. But I write about this stuff all the time on my Substack. I try and post 20 articles a month. At least that's my goal for 2025. I've actually been posting more than that. I'd say about 75% are behind the paywall, and then there's about 25% that are free. I highly suggest going and looking at it, though, especially if you're thinking about some of these things and you're looking for some of those nuggets, because it's a place where, as I think of things and reflect on things, I'm trying to put it out more. And so I hope that this was helpful. And if you need support, you know where to find me.